Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Legit Real Estate Podcast. I'm TJ Shofi. I'm here with Holly Rigoli. And today on episode 2, and by the way, thank you for everyone who liked the video for episode 1. We had a good time doing it, and we're glad that a number of people got the chance to watch it. But today we're going to talk about sellers. Our disclaimer, we're not here to talk about the market. You can find that information anywhere else, right? But we're here to talk about like cool stuff and weird things that we've seen or done. Especially today, we're going to talk about sellers and some of the kind of things that we run into. And I think there's going to be a lot of good information here for people who are thinking about buying or thinking about selling or have sold before. We do want to give you a little professional guidance in that area, along with telling some stories of some things that we've seen. So Holly, good morning. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
Awesome. It's always fun to talk about sellers because a lot of them kind of fall down like the same path when there's like trouble with the transaction, right? When there's strange things that happen, it usually it kind of falls into one of two paths, right? It's either usually condition or it's pricing. And I think I have a couple of stories on both of those, as we get started today. And I want to start with this first one. So when we go on listing appointments as realtors, right, our job is to go there and advise, right? We don't pick the price. And I think a lot of people have a misconception of what we do and thinking that we go in there and tell some guy or tell some woman, here's what you have to list your house for. And that's not the case, right? So what's your approach when you're talking to a seller who maybe is totally unreasonable when it comes to their list price? How do you like to have that conversation?
So this has happened to me a few times recently, and I'm very patient and I can go on for the long haul. Every property that I price out, I go through the same process, right? I go look, I see what other properties are in the same condition as theirs that are selling within a certain radius. And then I come to them and I say, okay, here's the high, medium, average, low. I adjust them based on, adjusting the comps for number of bedrooms, square footage. And I say, this is where we are. I think the price is going to be between this range and this range. And I've had multiple sellers come in and say, well, I want to sell for, $50,000 higher than that. And I say, okay, well, what is your strategy? Do you want to sell quickly or do you mind hanging on to it for a very long period of time? I say, we can start with whatever number you want to start at, but I'm telling you, this is where we should be to get a quicker sale. And most likely, I like to underprice things. Like I like to go on the market under market price so that we get a lot of people in and it drives the price up. That's typically my strategy. But I have had some sellers lately that are like, nope, I don't want to do that. And I say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We'll put it on for your price, but we'll give it so much time. And then if that doesn't work, we want to drop the price to this. And I haven't done it yet, but I want to start putting that into a contract because I've had a few transactions where I've gone months and months and months, and then finally they list where I wanted them to list, and then we sell it where they close to where they wanted to.
In the end, it costs people more money in the long run to do it that way, right? The way to get the most bang for your buck is to find out what that number is and then go a little bit below that number, right? Create some activity, and then a lot of times you'll get more than the number. So this quarter, I took 2 listings that were like pretty much the same price. Well, they had the same list price. Okay. One of them was worth, we have a lot of resources that we can use, right? So RPR is a place I like to go it'll give you a good value range, right? So on RPR, one of them was worth 335 and the person wanted to list at 400. The other one, the house was lit with the RPR was 435 and the person wanted to list at 400. Okay. One of them, I had about 60 something people show up to the open house. This is the one that was underpriced. I had 60 something people. We had 15 offers to go through, right? And when you have that many offers, it gives you a lot of leverage, right? So you can start to use one off the other and say, okay, well, we like this number, but it's not always about number. And then we like this speed of closing, and then we like, this guy's waiving inspections, and you get your seller in the best position overall. That happened. The other side, the one that we came in where $75,000 over what RPR says, my comps come out a little bit even lower than RPR. We're on our 5th price drop, I want to say. So you're at 4, then you're at 375, then you're at 360, then you're at 350, then you're at 340. And now, the seller will say, well, now we're right about where you said. Yeah, we are right about where I said, but it's also been 75 days that it's on the market now. So you lost it. And it's hard to explain it to people because they feel like they're losing money when they drop a price. But in reality, you're not losing money because you didn't have that money to begin with.
Mhm.
Like your house was never worth 400. So I always like to give the example to sellers, like I can list my house at $5 million tomorrow. Like I'll just put a sign up. I'm a realtor. I get the signs for nothing. Here, I'll put my house on the market for $5 million tomorrow. It's worth a percent of that, right? Or I can put my house on the market for $1 and I'll have every realtor in the state bringing their client here to see what the deal is. So
Mhm.
you have to find the middle ground between those two extremes and say, okay, where do I want to be? But when you want to sit on the market $100,000 over what every reasonable comp would be, those are the sellers that end up putting themselves in a bad spot.
Yep, and it does damage to them too because I actually had one, we're at a higher price point. We're in the woods. It's not one that's going to drive a ton of people here because it's over 500. And I had people, it was only on the market a month. And I have the agents, the first thing they ask me is, why has it been on the market so long? I'm like, because they don't understand because everything's going in. If it's not going in a week, something's wrong with it. And I'm like, no, we're just at a different price point. But what these buyers are great because I gave them suggestions. We lowered the price to where we needed it to be and we got offers. But I've had clients, they don't realize that the longer it sits on the market, it looks like something's wrong with the house.
It does at all price points too, right? And yeah, it's easier to explain when it's, over 5, you get kind of like a 30-day grace period. But if you're in the 300s and it's not sold in a week, people just assume there's something wrong with it, right? They really do. And try explaining that to sellers. It's not always the easiest thing. So I find that the pricing struggles continue to be a problem, like all the time. And as a consumer, I can see. But when I first sold my first house, I was licensed in real estate, but I wasn't as active. I was a new licensee is what it was,
Mhm.
pretty much, right? So we priced it pretty much kind of like at the right spot, maybe a little bit high. And I see the temptation because you see the temptation. It's like if I just get 20 grand more, that's 20 grand. But now that you're in it for a little while, you start to understand, like, to the consumer, it's in your best interest to price it where it needs to be priced. And that's a real challenge that we have. And it leads to some of the craziest sellers that I've ever had because of course it's my fault, right? It's what are you doing to sell my property? And we like to sit down and say, okay, here's the marketing strategy, right? Now, first of all, half the realtors you're dealing with have a marketing strategy and put a sign up and pray. Okay. That's everyone's, right? Higher end, there's more expectations, but the number one piece of marketing that we're doing on a listing is pricing.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, that's the only piece of the marketing package that's not determined by us. And that's where my frustration comes in sometimes when you're dealing with people who are unreasonable about the price, because I can put all the bells and whistles on it. I can bring school buses to the open house. I can advertise in print, magazines, online. I can take out social media ads. I can put a commercial on the nightly news. If you're overpriced, no one's making an offer, period.
No. Or if they make an offer, it still has to meet appraisal unless it's a cash offer.
Right. And that's a whole different, the appraisal struggle is different. But you know what I'm going to ask you? You ever have a seller lie to you about the condition of property?
I've had them put their own perspective on the condition of the property because of their own biases. Have
So
you?
yes. So I had a seller one time, who swore the house, everyone's house is in great condition, right? Everyone's disclosures say that there's no defects, no defects, no defects,
Mhm.
no defects, right? First time, so we get an offer on the property. We have a home inspection. The home inspector turns the heat up, as they'll do during a home inspection. Now we're in summer. Well, apparently the house had either been not lived in, and there was furniture in there. It looked like it was lived in, but maybe someone, I don't know, wasn't in a state, but maybe someone was there and just didn't use the heat. I don't know. As soon as he turned that heat on and the water started rushing through the baseboards, when I tell you it was waterfall city in like
Oh,
all different areas, because what had happened was all the pipes had frozen
uh,
and there were cracks in all of them. So now we're at the home inspection and it's raining from the ceiling, right?
oh no, no.
So now the seller is like, well, what did you do to the heat? what did I do to the heat? We turned the heat on. Like whatever we did wasn't going in the awnings of it. We weren't going in the, it was a cape. We weren't going under the awnings to like mess with pipes, right? And from that point on, I've been very, very skeptical. That was early on. Very skeptical of what sellers say about the condition of their property.
Yeah, that's bad. So did they say that they happen to know that there was an issue? They
Nothing wrong with the heat. But the only it was, I'm telling you, it was the second you heard that the guy turned the knob, you heard the heat kick on. Everyone's like, oh good, the heat kicked on. And then as soon as that water started running, boy, it ran all over the freaking house. And it was like, there's no way these people didn't know. Or there's no way they didn't know the house was vacant. Like
oh
to
my
the
God.
point where that was a risk, right? So this was in the summer. I want to say it was like August. That means that last winter, no one used the heat. Like you got to know that. There's no way they didn't know. And I just felt bamboozled, you know. And as a listing agent, you're embarrassed because you're supposed to, know about the property that you're selling.
Mhm.
But I can't know something if someone's lying to me.
So I'm curious, how did that one turn out? Did your buyers back out? I mean, did the buyers back out of that one, or did they make something
No,
work?
we called the plumber. The plumber came. I mean, the house was great except for that part. God knows what happened after they moved in. Because once you find a defect like that,
What
you
else
gotta,
has been left sitting?
yeah. What else haven't you told us? What else haven't you said? So yeah, that was pretty frustrating. Actually, my house. So the house I'm sitting in right now. When I bought this house, I found this house on like a listing appointment,
Mhm.
right? And I love the house. Second I pulled up, I'm like, I'm gonna buy this house. Okay. You ask the guy the regular questions, and he's adamant. The house, everything works, everything's this, everything's that. House is great. You're gonna love the house. You're gonna love the house. I put down like 3/4 inch, like pretty much the most expensive laminate floor you can buy. That it looked like hardwood floors. I put it in the basement. My basement was beautiful. First time it rained, here came the water.
Oh,
Those things got so waterlogged, I had to carry them all up the bulkhead. It's like that lying bastard. There's no way that house has never gotten water. This house never got water until the freaking week I move in. Full of
that's
shit.
awful.
Yeah, lying
And it's
people.
still a struggle for you because I know you and I were both the first time we were supposed to record, we were
Yeah,
both battling with the stupid water in our basements.
yep.
Like what,
So
two
we
months
thought we
ago?
solved the problem, and then we didn't. But now I've got like at least I knew. If he told me the truth, I still would have bought the house. How? That's what's the
But you
annoying
wouldn't have
part.
put down hardwood floors.
I would have put down, yeah, I would have put down this water, this stuff over here. You could have an oil leak on this stuff and spray it off with fantastic. It'll be done, right? But like, just tell the truth. I feel like that happens too much,
That
too
does
much.
drive me nuts when people don't tell the truth on things. I will say it wasn't when I listed or it was a house I bought for a flip and we bought it off market, but the flippers we bought it off of, they basically said, "Hey, we started this job, but we need to move our equity onto something else." I walked through, looked really nice. I actually did a home inspection on it. I will never use that home inspector again though because they walked through and the lights weren't working in the hallway and they're like, oh no, that's just because like the there's bulbs that need to be replaced. Well, come to find out they cut through all the electrical wires above the ceiling, so I had to rerun new wiring for the light.
Oh man.
That kind of could have been checked a
And
different
they
way. I
knew
found
that.
out.
Like
Huh?
they definitely knew that. They knew that.
Yeah. Oh, they knew that, but they lied and, the inspectors didn't dig into it or look anymore. Like they have their little electric meters. They could have just used that to check to see if at least there was power going there or, take a bulb from somewhere else. But this was, I was a little bit more naive and stuff because it was one of the, I was kind of new. But now I know. But I hate when people lie. I hate dishonesty. I'd rather you tell me the truth about anything.
It is. I'm skeptical right away if you have a house where so it says on our Rhode Island standard disclosure, it'll say like how long have you occupied the property, and the guy's been there for 35 years, and nothing went wrong. Like nothing went wrong in 35 years. You never saw a crack, a leak. You never had a drop. Like nothing ever happened in 35 years. I'm always skeptical because that's an impossibility, right? So I want to tell you about this one seller I had because this is a story like no other. So I get this listing, and this is in it was before the market really jumped. So it was an $800,000 listing. The house right now is probably worth like 1.5, right? An $800,000 listing. At that time in my career, that was a big deal. I was wicked
Yeah.
excited to take this, right? Beautiful, beautiful house. This woman She had a room that was bigger than probably any master bedroom I've seen in the past 10 years. It was massive, right? In that room, all there was clothes. She had the racks, like, when you go to like Filene's or
Mm-hmm.
whatever stores people buy clothes at, and they have all the racks. Well,
Mm-hmm.
she had like a rack for each color.
Oh my
So
God.
there was a rack with just red shirts. And then there was a rack with blue shirts. The walls were all like shelves, and it was for either jeans. On one wall was all jeans and pants, and on the other wall was all shoes and pocketbooks or whatever.
So
I
she
don't know.
had like her
It
own
was
store in her master bedroom.
master bedroom. It was bigger than my. It was like it had to be. It had to be 1,500 square feet. Like it really was that big. I mean, this house had like a 12 car garage. It was a monstrosity. Anyway, so I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like every desperate housewife of Providence is going to want to live in this house. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
like the thing, right? This woman would not let us photograph the closet, which she called that room the closet. To me, it was the best room in the whole house because the rest of the house is just a house, right? And
Mm-hmm.
built in pool. She would not let us photograph this room because she did not want anyone to know how many shirts she had bought.
Oh. Oh, maybe was that a divorce case? Was like she fighting with something over with her husband or something?
They were cordial, but they were not together. So
Oh,
I'm there with
geez.
the photographer, and the photographer's like, I don't know what to do. Any place there was a room, but especially that room, she first of all, she didn't want us to put the pictures on the internet. So now I'm trying to
Uh,
sell like $1 million house with no pictures.
yeah.
But she like would not let us because she didn't want anybody to know how many shirts she had bought. I guess she had like a real shopping problem. Like anyone who has that many shirts, you got an issue.
Mm.
I mean, there must have been 600 shirts on there. Lady's crying. Photographer doesn't know what to do. She's like
Oh.
yelling at us both, and I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I don't know how you expect me to sell this house. It was crazy. It expired. She wouldn't let me show it.
Well, you know
We were
what
on.
is great now is that there's so much like you can do with Photoshop and editing that I've seen the photographer I use, he'll go and you see like this nasty counter full of pots and pans and all sorts of stuff. And he's got the before and then he's got the after and it's completely cleared off. It's so they can do a lot of stuff now.
They really can. It's like magic. But that can hurt you sometimes too, because I had like a hoarder house,
Mhm.
and the photographer thought they were doing me a favor by like photoshopping this house. And then when people would come in, it was like this wasn't in the pictures. Like the pictures didn't look like this,
Yeah.
because he was just taking. I mean, he was taking out like furniture, putting his own in. I don't know what the hell this guy was doing. He was being creative, but yeah. So you do have to watch out for that too. But yeah, the sellers that don't like to allow showings. You ever get one of those?
Not yet. I've tried to get into some where you can't get in, but
It just can't get in. This weekend I went to a 3 family and we could only get into one unit.
it happens a lot with multifamilies and it's
It's like we're
frustrating.
all here. It is very frustrating. But if a regular consumer asks us to list their house, then they have to give me access to it. It can't just be, you can only show my house on Saturday from 10 to 11 and expect me to get the most amount of eyeballs on it. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no. I've got a fun seller story for you. So I think I told you about this one because, I would go to you at the office and be like, oh my God, I have this situation. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. And this went on for a while because it had been the first flip I did, I was selling to the person that had bought it from me. They were ready to move on. And so I did my CMA and I said, this is where we are in the market. Let's list under a certain amount of money. And then we'll get, I think I wanted to list under 200. And I said, we'll get somewhere around 215, 220 probably. But they insisted they wanted, or it was three. I can't remember if it was a three or a two or whatever. But whatever it was, they wanted to list that like 240 or 340, like $40,000 over where I wanted them to list. So we were on the market for a long time. And we finally get someone to come in. Now, this house wasn't really great for FHA buyers because it was peeling paint on the garage, the garages, the outbuildings outside. And the basement was kind of funky because they used to get a lot of water in the basement. It was set up with, there was drains that would kind of come into the basement. And there was like a makeshift channel around the basement that would go into like a hole in the floor where there was dirt. And it was that made it kind of difficult. We had these FHA buyers that came in that wanted to buy it. And so he's like, okay, great. We finally go under contract, and lo and behold, it appraises under where we go under contract. So we have to reduce the price. And at that point, he's worn down. I'm worn down. We're good. Keep moving forward. However, now we have to deal with the peeling paint on the garage. So I'm out there and I'm trying to paint it with like, I went out and bought a special paint sprayer so that I didn't have to reach up high. Now I brought extra paint I had from like one of my houses, and I'm just like, I didn't even care the color. They just needed it painted so that the appraiser was okay with this. We get that done. Now we're a week away, 2 weeks away from closing. And he tells me he quit his job. I'm like, why would you quit your job? He's like, because I need the time to move the stuff out of the house. I don't have any help. And I'm like, but then it got extended. So this poor guy is like waiting. Like he doesn't have an income from a job right now. He can't rent a U-Haul. He can't move. Now he had like, I think 5 or 6 vehicles and a boat in the driveway that he had to get out of there. And then, I'm over there and I'm trying to help clear out the house as much as I can. So we're the day before closing, and he still got his entire bed set, his living room set, everything in his kitchen, his entire the garage. I think 4 or 5 vehicles still there. 2 of them are at my house now, which I live not far, so we drove them over to my house. They're not registered. I'm like, all right, hopefully I won't get in trouble for this. I'm like, but we got to
Yeah,
get this
right.
stuff cleared out. So we get that stuff out. I'm there till like 11 o'clock at night, loading up my car is fully loaded. And he was going to put it in storage about an hour away, and I have a trailer. I have my trailer fully loaded. My husband showed up because it's like 10 o'clock at night. And he's like, you're not home yet. He's like, I'm trying to move this furniture now. Mind you, my client, he had hurt his back, so he couldn't lift
Isn't
any
it
of the
crazy though
furniture.
sometimes when it's like you're doing more work than they are for like their move?
Yeah, but I felt bad. He was injured, and his back was hurting him, but I was trying to like do the as much as I could. But I'm like, I tried telling him beforehand, you have to have this stuff out. He's like, well, I don't have any help, so what am I gonna do? And I don't have money to pay anybody. So I paid for the U-Haul. I had my trailer. We managed to get it all out the night before, most of it out the night before. And then the next morning I had to go and meet him, and we went up to the storage unit and stuff. But it was tough. Like, one thing, don't quit your job just to move stuff.
Right,
Two,
right. Don't do that.
you got to make sure you have that income so you can get everything out of there. It was tough, but we managed to get there, and he still left vehicles there. They had to put a thing in escrow saying that he was going to lose money if the vehicles weren't out in a week. And so we managed to get them out of there. I found somebody to take the boat. It was a lot.
Oh, that's funny. When I bought this house, the guy left the car in the garage forever and ever.
Hmm.
Finally, I was like, I'm throwing it away, whatever it is. Here's one for you. Did you ever like you would common sense would tell you that if you're closing on a house March 1st, that you have to move out of the house, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So I was on a team once, and I wasn't the team leader. I was like I was a showing agent on a particular house, which means I basically opened the door, showed the property, and then kind of got out of the way. Like the listing agent handled all the communication with the seller. It was fine. Well, we get there for the walkthrough the day before the closing, and of course the listing agent doesn't go to the property. It's pretty much mine to handle. So I get there. These folks didn't realize they had to move. So now I'm there with the buyer, the buyer's agent, like 3 buyer's agent, and the client is like, "Oh, we thought we were just signing the papers today. We didn't know we had to leave."
Oh my gosh.
The listing agent had never told them. So whatever their intent, whatever conversation was happening about selling this property, they were never informed that they had to leave. So now everyone's in a tiff, right? Like everyone's freaking
Yeah,
furious.
because for those who don't know, when you close on a property, you need to be out of that house that day.
Especially in Rhode Island. In other states, it's a little different. I'll tell you that. But anyway, so long story short, now, off back then I used to wear a tie, if you can imagine that.
Nope.
Off comes everything. Here we go. So now I'm lugging couches up and down stairs. I'm carrying boxes. I'm packing baseball cards. When I tell you I was marinated in sweat by like 10 o'clock in the morning trying to get this shit on a U-Haul, it was probably the worst day of my career. And I'm like, this is it. That kind of was like the end of me being on a team. It's
Oh
like, yeah,
my
I'm not
gosh.
doing this. Like I can handle this business on my own. Yeah, so that happened.
So where
I'll
did they
never.
go? Like where did they go?
I think they kept the stuff on the U-Haul. They were closing on their house like a few days later. So I don't know where they went in the meantime. I had very little communication with these people, so I don't really know. All I know is that I definitely did not go to that closing, and I was very happy to be done with it.
Yeah, I will say the guy that I was talking about had not realized he needed to be out like by that day. And I kept telling him, I'm like, no, 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 we close. When we close, you have to be out of the house. He's like, well, I don't have any help. What am I gonna do? And I'm like, well, so it it's tough.
It's funny. It's something you take for granted, but I make sure I have that conversation with my sellers now. Like, just so you know, on this date, you have to be packed, ready, and out. If you can get out the day before, it's even better.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
in some states now, a good friend of mine, and I'll refer to him occasionally, is in Seattle. So we talk a lot, probably once a month, twice a month, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, over there, it's not uncommon to close and then stay in the house for 10 days, and they put it right in the sales agreement. Like, we're going to close, and then the seller's going to stay here. You know, we're going to close March 15th, and the seller will be out by April 1st. You
Yeah,
know, over here, that's like a big deal. If you ask for that around here, people they lose their shit. But in other
yeah.
parts of the country, it's kind of standard. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe people come from other parts of the country aren't familiar with the way Rhode Island does business, but my lord.
Yeah, those are things. It's the things that you don't think about telling your clients until you faced with it and you're like, oh, I thought you knew.
I thought you've done this before. Like, yeah, this isn't a starter house. At your last house, what happened, darling? Did you not move out? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff like that. I'm thinking of their faces. I'm thinking of the buyer's face when they pulled up and like nothing was happening. They were like surprised that we were there.
It is amazing though what people can get out of their houses. I did have one group of clients that I didn't know until like I think the week before they were getting divorced and going in two separate directions. So we show up to the final walkthrough and it was in a town that doesn't have like, I live in Foster and they grab everything you put out on the side of the street and put it in the trash. This was in another town that didn't do that. And if you didn't have things that could fit in your trash can, it was staying on the curb and you had to call for special pickup or pay somebody to haul it away. I showed up for the final walkthrough. Their couch, their, I don't know, TVs, bedroom sets. I mean, everything was out on the sidewalk. And I'm like, you realize you have to take care of getting that out of there, right? So I ended up having to call a trash removal company. One of my tenants ended up with the couch. It was a beautiful sectional, beautiful leather sectional. Unfortunately, it had been raining, so some of the stuff it was tough to salvage. But these are things again. You didn't think of it until you show up. I didn't realize they were moving two different places, and they didn't need their furniture, so they just left it on the sidewalk.
You know, I have a feeling I'm going to go through that with something I have under contract right now. I have a feeling like when I get there, I'm going to actually try and do my own walkthrough like 5 days before the closing because I get a feeling like things are just destined to be left behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only fit so much in my car. Like I know to keep my trunk empty. Like I went home with miscellaneous stuff because I live in Johnston. They'll take anything.
Yeah.
They'll take anything because we have the landfill here. But I don't have like an SUV to. I can't stack couches. Like I can just take all the miscellaneous shit that you leave around. But I have one client right now that I feel like they're destined to leave things behind. It's going to end up being my problem.
Thank God for my trailer. My dad gave me one of his old trailers that he built off of a boat trailer. And then my cousin built it up for me so I can fit a crap ton of stuff in there. And I load that thing up. I've emptied out, I think, two or three of my clients' homes or whatever was left over on the end of the day. It's like, okay, well, I tip my trash guys pretty good around Christmas time because
It does come in handy though to have that, or to at least, I have a lot of space here on the property.
Mhm.
So it comes in handy to be able to help in that way. Cause a lot of times people, they either don't care, they think it's going to be someone else's problem, but I can't in good, have you ever cut grass the day of a closing?
I've cut it for the listings, not the day of the closing.
How about sellers that decide, okay, I'm under contract, I'm not doing a damn thing around here, and they just let
Yeah,
the grass grow? Like, what are you people doing?
yeah. Actually, that same guy that I was that I was helping move at like 11 o'clock at night, I was like, it has to be broom clean. We can't just leave it this way. And I was in there, I'm cleaning the bathroom, I'm cleaning the vacuuming the floors, washing the floors. I'm trying to wash it as I leave. Like, we can't leave it like, not clean for the buyers that are coming in. And I tried to do my best, but yeah, some people just don't realize that it's courtesy, well, and kind of required to leave it
Yeah, I feel
neat.
like everybody should move into their house with like the grass cut. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's a minimum requirement. We only have 3 months of summer, right? So if you're closing in the summer, I feel like the day after the close, you shouldn't have to go there and hire a landscaper your first hour.
Yeah. No, very true. Oh, some fun stories, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's stressful. I'm sweating under here. I hope you can't see it on the video, but I'm sweating thinking about all this stuff that these
For
people
me,
need to do.
I would appreciate the sweat. I'm wearing a sweatshirt and a hoodie because I'm cold down
I
in my
got.
basement.
I'm in the hoodie mode too. I've got appliances being delivered to a condo today. Showing the condo, showing the condo, showing the condo. People are writing offers, subject to seeing the stove, subject to seeing the stove, subject to seeing the stove. Like, dude, can we get the stove, please?
Oh my gosh.
So finally,
That's
the stove is
annoying.
coming today. Yeah, like just get the stove. Just put a stove in there. This is not hard. You have time. Do it.
That's so funny though that the buyers are that picky in this market. Do you
Right.
notice the change though? And that's the other thing with having the sellers to understand that we have a good understanding of the market and the waves that it goes in, and the fact that over the winter it gets slower and you got to be a little bit more helpful. Was it I can't even think of the word. You got to kind of give into the buyer's needs a little bit more,
A
but
little more
it's still a
accommodating.
seller's market.
It's definitely still a seller's market. And if you get the price right, or if you underprice, then you'll be able to pick and choose the things that you want to do. But if your house is in disrepair, I feel like the buyer right now paying 6.5, 7.5% interest. They're if they're in that price point where they're right up against it, they don't want to come in and do projects.
Hmm.
So like if you have a house that's in really shitty condition, or you have a lot of deferred maintenance, and I feel like it's deferred maintenance more than anything else, where it's like, dude, you got to clean your gutters. There's basic things you have to do. You got to fix the hole in the door. You've got to do these things so that when the buyers come in, I have one, when you turn the door handle, the front door, the handle comes off right in your hand.
Oh, jeez.
And it's like, and like, you've got to give people, you can't give people reasons to walk away.
No.
Yeah, it's a seller's market, but you're not unless you're selling a house that's like straight up going to an investor who doesn't care. Like me, I don't give a shit. When you and I shop for houses, I don't care. I hope the door handle comes off. It's one less thing I got to take off. But when the regular residential buyer, if your house is in good condition, yeah, it'll go quick and it's a seller's market. But if it's in disrepair, and you've been lazy, you haven't
Yeah.
cleaned all winter, people are walking in the door, they're still walking out the door.
Yeah. That's why I still give people two different prices. Well, I give them three different prices. When I go in, if it's a house that needs some work, I say, okay, this is what you're going to get on market as is market pricing with commissions and all that stuff. Here's what you'll get if you do X, Y, and Z. It's going to cost you approximately this to do it. And then you'll get this for it on the market. Or if you don't want to deal with any of it, I'll buy it for this. And
Yeah.
it's always a lot less when I offer that. Right now, they're still better to put it on the market a lot of the times, but at least they got to kind of know what they're facing, because they're like, oh, my neighbor's house just sold for $500,000. Like, yeah, but they've got granite countertops and tile floors, and you have linoleum from the 1960s. There's a big difference there.
And that's why I don't do, so I do on my comp sheets. When I go into a listing appointment, I usually have like 3 different ranges, and they only see the one I want them to see, because yeah, okay, so basically the square footage stuff all stays the same, right? We know what the house is, you get the general idea. But I don't know till I walk in the door whether you have, like, you're smoking 6 packs of Marlboros in the living room. Like, I don't know if I'm going to open the door and it's going to smell like animal.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that before, where I come in and all my paperwork says your house is worth 450. And when I'm in there, I'm like, the house is worth like 350 because it's
Mm-hmm.
gross. So I don't go in with that anymore. I go in with different options, because sometimes you walk in and it's surprising. Like, you think you're going into this little, you have an expectation what the house is. You walk in, it's like, wow, everything's high end in here. Okay, we could get a higher price. But a lot of times you walk in and it smells like animals or cigarettes,
Yeah.
and and you don't want to have to come down off a number that you've already prepared with.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah. Actually, buddy, I've been thinking this all along, 270. Listen, I do want to remind everyone that's listening, and we're having a lot of fun. Send your feedback, right? So send us ideas, send us stories, especially if you're in the real estate business. tjchofi@gmail.com. What's your email?
No, you don't want to send it there. You want to send it to the legit real estate podcast at gmail.com.
Yes, you do. You do, Holly. My fault. Send
And
it to
guess
the
what?
legit.
I worked very hard. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon Music. We're on, I think, iTunes. We're working on getting on all the platforms.
That's
So,
awesome. We need people's stories, though. We need them
yes,
because mine are going to get boring after a while.
yes. So yeah,
Mhm.
I would love to get stories. So please send them, and things you want to hear about. We would love to share them. We know we've got a lot of friends out there that are in the same industry and have some wonderful stories. So it's gonna get better. We're gonna get these out to you at least once a week going forward. So glad you guys are listening, and have a
Till next
great
time.
day.
Have a good day, everyone.